Hey, what's going on, guys? This is going to be the true daily scan or weekly scan for this upcoming week of August 30th. But really, I didn't want to touch on semis or QQQ. I've talked about those enough. I'm very bullish on those, but there's a lot of things setting up in multiple sectors, right? And individual names are really starting to spark, or they're giving those setups that I really like to go for, or what I would deem A plus, if you will. And it's a lot. So I want to touch on these really quick. Pan W, obviously in cybersecurity here, this one looks really good. This has been a fan favorite because Pelosi notoriously ended up grabbing this, and she's been holding for quite some time now. And she's actually green, but she hasn't taken profits yet. I've actually been watching this and making sure and kind of checking on it, every couple of days, every couple of weeks to see if she's still in. And then once we ended up having this big breakout here on Tuesday, right after earnings, I wanted to check to see if she took profits because this was a big target here from this gap fill, right around 362.85. Back here, I did mention once we recovered back into the gap fill from here, right, because this was the big gap everybody was eyeing from the green line to the white line. I mentioned here when we had this inside bar candle near the highs that it could be a good lotto position, and then obviously I was expecting it to push up and then test this almost this little mini resistance within the gap, right around this red line. I deleted it because it's in my new gap, right? But just to give you guys the general picture, right? It kind of hit this level, pulled back, and then rallied into earnings. And now what ended up happening, right, is we rallied into a target. And typically when you hit a target that's very obvious like that, you'll have people take profits very quickly. And the following day we'll have a ton of volume, and then it'll sell off on continued volume, right? But what's interesting is this is actually selling off on diverging volume. And then we had a pretty nice bar here on Friday, which closed in a doji right above our gap, right? The top of the gap. And good lower wick off of this. It didn't quite fill the gap yet, but it's technically retesting the peg, and it's kind of weird to categorize this as a peg since it's not a very large amount of distance that was covered. It's very small, but the thing that's interesting about it is Pelosi hasn't taken her position off. It's retesting, right, this old resistance that was within that gap, and it's pulling back on diverging volume. We obviously can note too that after the target to target trade, it didn't sell off very harshly, right? So this, in my opinion, has potential to make a new high and actually trade towards this all-time high here at 380. So big watch for me. I think there's could potentially be kind of like a sympathy off S, right, and some of these other cybersecurity names that are reporting this week, and that could give this really nice lift up into that 380 spot. So I'm going to be watching this for 380 calls, probably 2 weeks out. If we can kind of open up near this 343 to 345 zone, I would look to, grab maybe like 5 contracts. If we open above this gap here, as you guys can see, I mentioned we kind of wicked down, trapped into this gap down here, and then closed above. If we open above, I think this is 348.69, right? I'll take like 1 or 2 contracts. I'm not going to go very heavy into this one, but I'll take 1 or 2 contracts. I'll save my majority of my ads, which would be only 3 contracts. I'm not going to make this a huge position, but I want to get some exposure on this where I could potentially get 5 contracts. If I don't get the pullback that I want entirely, I'll grab 2 and see if we can get try to get a big move out here to 380.84. But I really like this. 2 spots to add, 345 to 343 for full position. If we open above 348, which is this little green line here, I'll just add 2 contracts and then kind of hold that and see if we can get a push to 380. All right, we've talked about this one so much, guys. Shop. Hopefully, you guys still have a position. I know I deleted like the alert section on it. I think I did at least. Let me see, really quick. I want to go into threads. No, I still have it. Yeah, we should all still be in shop. The March 2025 calls. I don't have a lot of these, admittedly, because it did sell off and retest this gap way back here, and I was down like 48, 55%, somewhere in that range. And I just kind of held on to them, right? And now I'm back green on the position. But I don't really want to touch or add into those March contracts because they're so expensive now up here near these highs. So instead what I'm thinking about doing is actually rolling the position. This chart looks so good, guys. This is almost identical to like SE, ROKU. I mean, ROKU is a little bit different, but some of like the bigger accumulation names that we've seen in these very large channels that have been basing out since like the bear market of 2022. Notoriously, we could talk about like Hood, Coin was another big one. SE, right? SE kind of had the similar structure back here, right? And then it kind of broke out. We had the LPS pullback here. But very, very, very simple accumulation pattern that I think we kind of saw, and we're in the beginning of the markup phase where a lot of people are waiting for the pullbacks and aren't going to touch them. And I think there's an opportunity here, right? We do have this nice peg that kind of formed, and I don't see us coming back to this at all, honestly, which would be at like a 63, 67 high. Obviously, it fills down here at like 54.89. I don't see that happening until we hit target first. But just to kind of go over this again, earnings is coming up here like in November. I'm thinking about grabbing October 31st, right? So what I'm thinking about doing is adding a couple contracts if we can open above the top of this gap here at 75.30. I'll probably go into like November or I think November 20th is expiration. So I'm thinking about going into November 20th or maybe even some December contracts. I'm not going to go into the March 2025, right? I already have a position on that, but I want to kind of roll down in terms of expiration and get a little more aggressive with this and buy cheaper contracts so I have scalability and can obviously load fresher cons, right? And that are a little bit more cheap. And obviously I want to go further out too because I can, if I'm, let's say this ends up failing and holding this 75.30 spot, it'll pull back down. I can add at the top of this gap right here, right? Or the bottom of the gap, I should say. And really, I think there's an opportunity here to catch this from 75.30 to the bottom of this gap, so 71.94, right? Or 71.76. Let's delete this really quickly so you guys can kind of see visually how this would look. We'll get rid of this because this doesn't matter now. What we'll do is just kind of make this whole spot like a buy zone, right? This entire range, I'm going to make it green, I'm looking to buy, right? Let's just make it very, very simple. I'm looking to buy this entire zone. And risk would be a break underneath that 71.76 if we have like a daily close underneath that. But I think this chart's prime, dude. I think this thing's going to keep going and having, anytime there's the market is looking really good, right, in terms of strength, or we have headlines that come out that kind of move the overall market, I think shop's going to outperform. But yeah, I think this is good to go. I think the accumulation is already done. We're in that markup phase, and I'm going to be looking for this to trade up into 83.50 and then obviously fill the gap up here around 88.98. I think we get a little excess and maybe even a push to the highs up here around 90. So yeah, I'm just going to be looking at this one for a pretty decent sized position. As always, I'll start something a little bit lighter up here, and if we can get the pullback into 71.76, that's when I'll add heavier because it makes more sense, right? The closer you are to your risk reward becomes much greater, and then obviously if you do lose and it invalidates your loss is a little more acceptable and doesn't hurt as bad. So that's going to be another position I'm going to be watching is shop. Like I said, November 20th or even like December, I would say 85 calls, right? 85 or 90 calls. So those would probably be the sweet spots for in terms of strikes. Right, another name here that's been pretty beaten down, but I think this has so much room, guys, to run. I haven't touched this name in a very, very long time, but we're seeing some pretty weird anomaly volume prints. We actually had one of our highest volume prints ever back here. It was August 9th. Which was their last earnings, and that's what I'm kind of using as a potential support, right? If you guys don't know, I talk about these as their own footprint candles because there's so much volume that's baked into these daily highs and these lows, where they're either trying to protect the high as a support if it breaks above, or if it breaks under, right, they're going to be looking to kind of keep price underneath that spot. So we're now above the top of that earnings candle, so I'm going to be looking at 1649 as a support. And then we have this really simple high, right? This is a weekly high. Obviously, it's 2 bars here from July 17th and July 18th. But really, this sent us down for a lower low. So I'm going to be using this, specifically, it's 1833. It's kind of like a break and base resistance, where I think if we can get above this, guys, there is not much stopping it from trading back to this previous earnings candle low. Obviously, this is what provided a nice bounce. We had a lower high. We sold underneath this. So this is a very, very valid level. And I don't really use this a ton, but if we take a look here at the volume range profile, there is nothing nothing but thin air, right, until we get back to 2220. So if we just take it up on a break and base above this, right, a daily candle close above, or like an intraday 15-minute hourly pullback or a flag, I think this has potential to move about 394, right, or 21% on the underlying. This would be a huge move, guys, and I'm really liking the opportunity here. From a weekly perspective, right, I mean, it's kind of the same exact thing. You guys can see, you know, we could technically tie this, instead of it being 22, we could move it down here to 21.22, so a little bit shorter in terms of a target, but still a great move on the underlying chart. That would be about a 15% move, or around $3. So either way, however you guys have this charted in terms of the potential resistance or support now turned resistance, however you guys want to do it. But yeah, this chart's been super beaten down, guys. Like, it's insane. Like I said, some of the highest weekly volume we've seen in a very long time. So the interest is definitely here. There's buyers here, and we just want to be able to see how much further they can push it. And obviously this test of resistance is a big spot. They can give enough juice to break it and then kind of hold that level, right? I think we'll start to see some more some leanway given by shorts to this 22 spot before they attempt to reshort that level. So another big watch for me is Unity. Okay, Roku. You guys should all know this one pretty well now. This one's taken a long time to play out. This was a swing that I talked about multiple times. We've had success on it, and then obviously we had this big rip here, and then sold back down underneath this low here, right around 55.02, and then really, right, we kind of sucked back up and made our way back above this previous gap here, right? This was 59.89. I did say that I was going to be extremely bullish if we got above 59.89, and I completely forgot about this. I took my alert off. Oh, I still have it here. I don't know why it didn't trigger. But yeah, really nice markup. We kind of cleaned through a lot of this supply here. You got to think there's been so much trading that's been here with this consolidation. Well, obviously, we broke down, retested it, broke down, retested it, and then there's just been a huge amount of volume that's been here. And the fact that we had this massive gap up and a push into this gap here, I think this chart can get really explosive. All I'm really watching for on this one, and it's so simple, is just a pullback and hold of the top of this gap here, right? If you guys want to take the candle open or go through the wick, I guess it doesn't really matter. But yeah, if you want to flex it either way, by all means do so. But you know, if we're going to go from the candle wick, it's going to be 68.38. If you guys want to take it from the body, right, it would be, let's see here, 68.03, right? So either way, but simple break and base, right? I want to see if tomorrow or sometime during this week we can just really pull back and hold 68, really develop some good buyers that sit there and not let it kind of sink underneath. Or if we get some kind of daily candle that breaks under and closes back above with some good volume and a large lower wick, that would be a good indication that buyers are looking to hold this level rather than take profits. And I think this does the same exact thing, right, as a lot of these other names. I think it's going to continue its pathway up. You have to think, right, this whole zone here, it was one daily bar here. So in more recent memory, right, these levels are pretty shallow in terms of trading volume. So I think we can really start to move. If we can just catch the pullback, I think we can break towards the top, base this gap, and then I think we have a clean shot up to 78.61. Obviously, to get to 78.61 and then fill this in the entirety of this gap up here up to 91, that's going to take some time. So I really like the dated contracts on these ones. So I was thinking like maybe January, February, or March of 2025. I think those should be good. So I want to kind of build out a pretty decent sized swing on this one, guys, if I'm being honest. I'm thinking, you know, maybe 20 to 30 contracts on those guys, depending on pricing. If they're priced a little higher, right, maybe like 5.0 to 7, maybe just a 10 contract trade. I don't think that's too outrageous, and kind of add into those as long as we stay within risk. But plenty of time. I want to see if I can hold this out to 91. Yeah, I think this chart's absolutely sick, man. I think this one's going to go pretty crazy over the next several months. So Roku, big watch for me.
All right. Can't ignore this one. As much as I don't like it, I've been more of a fan of UPST or Upstart, but we have to take a look at these names, guys, that are very rate sensitive. I think Rivian too is another good one. I mean, to take a look at, but I'm gonna go with this guy, SOFI. Right, chart looks pretty good. You know, I didn't really know where to grab this support at or this green line. I think the big thing is, right, I think that this is being front ran, right? I mean, I think this is an accumulation in terms of the lower lows being very incremental or making virtually no space, right? From each new low, it's been very, very small and smaller and smaller. And a lot of the bigger volume have come off like these bars here, which have been trying to protect or close back above the previous low, which are always indicative of accumulations. And more recently, these sell-offs here have been on lower volume, and it's just an interesting chart, especially with interest rate decision coming up here in September, where I think the probability of a cut's still like 70 to 80%, I think, or maybe even 90%. The one that's really up for grabs is it going to be a 50 or 100 BPS? That remains to be seen. But overall, the chart looks really freaking good, guys. Upstart already kind of did its thing and led the way. Kind of sad I missed out on this one. It is what it is, though. I mean, I've been very, very adamant on semis and kind of just playing it safe for the most part. But I think SOFI has a lot of potential here to kind of follow suit and trade right into this gap fill here, right around 860. So $8 calls would obviously be of interest for September or October, right? You just want to get some kind of exposure to the FOMC rate decision. But yeah, had a hard time really figuring out where to pull my support from. I mean, I kind of gravitated towards this higher low that was made here. Obviously, it was a lower high, then it made a lower low, and then we started to have lower lows across the board, but I couldn't really figure it out. And then I went to the daily, right, and then I kind of found this nice little spot here, right? If we kind of remove everything historically from the left-hand side, and we really just focus on this gap, right? I feel like these are really nice to kind of trade when you have these and you understand kind of like the accumulations that are forming out. I think this is a really good basis to really start a position, right? And really force sellers to make a new low on you. We know each new low has been incremental and very, very small in terms of range. And now we're starting to see the markup, and we're really chiseling through a lot of these old lows that were made. So I would be comfortable starting a position, honestly, right off this 716 spot, maybe add down into 690 and then risk a daily close either under that, or if I want to be a little bit more lenient, honestly, it might be a game time decision where I want to pull my stops. I might force a new low on me, but I mean that's pretty big risk there. But I might do it, to be honest. But yeah, this chart looks so good. You guys can see the breakout on high volume, which is very, very good to see. You had a diverging pullback in terms of the sell-off, right? You guys should be able to see these by now, right? Low volume sell-off, good breakout through the gap here, right? And then what's happening now? High volume for the breakout once again after the diverging flag. This is harmonics 101, right? So I actually might even start this if we can kind of just get through Friday's high, or this little high right here. Let's just grab this really quickly, this little white line. Let me get you a price point, guys. Let me get you guys a price point. 750, right? But I would be totally comfortable buying dips all the way to 690, right? I think this has a good move all the way to that 890 spot, or why don't I have a line here or a price label? 857. So I mean, think about it. If we can get like the ads even back here, I mean that's a fucking 20% move. If we can somehow get some ads down here, right? I mean, that's a 24% move. Obviously, taking it from here to here is still a great move. That's $1.05, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 14% on the underlying. Yeah, so I'm really big on SOFI right now. I know a lot of you guys have been trying to add these lows here, and trust me, I get it. I have the same issue when I think I see something. But more and more, I'm learning and becoming a better trader because a lot of these things take patience. When you see an accumulation, you don't want to be entering with them all the time, right? You just want to wait for the right moments. And sometimes it feels like you're late, but you're not, right? So this is like one of those times, right? I think that we can definitely capitalize on this from the 716 to 690 pullback if we get it, or the break and base, or just a momentum trade through 750, right? I think I want to just protect myself though by taking those October contracts or late September, and that's kind of the way I want to play this. So SOFI, a big watch for me. Okay, I'm going to skim through these last ones pretty quick, guys, all right? So bear with me. Path, I've talked about this one multiple times. This was a big position by Kathy Woods, and she really honestly grabbed it up here before it gapped down, but I don't think she was technically wrong, just terrible timing. All in all, right, we're basically at the all-time lows, right? We're right off the all-time low here at 1040. I probably should have grabbed there, but I'd rather trade this as it breaks into the gap and then have a lot of lean way to work with, and free range up to fill that gap around 1808. This is going to be a share trade for me, so just equity position, right? I don't think I want to trade options, but this would be a 42% move, right? If we can get the gap fill that happened from its previous earnings back here, right? And really just a simple trade, right? I like the idea if it rejects, because you have to think sellers are more than likely going to be protecting the gap here. If it does pull back and sell, right, I'm going to be looking to take ads off of, you guys guessed it, right? This little gap here. I think this is a good spot to really kind of build a position on a pullback. Or, right, if it doesn't give me that opportunity, which would be unfortunate, I'm okay taking some position on a break and base above that and then kind of adding in and then seeing if we can get the move there. Obviously, earnings is coming up September 5th, so as this starts to, let's say it kind of just takes its time, it consolidates, and then it breaks into the gap and consolidates into like September 4th. That's a little sketchy. That's a little bit more difficult because there is the potential for this to be like a gap trap. And then what if it ends up, closing above? We all feel good. We feel dandy. Earnings comes out and then it knifes us all the way to there, and then it starts to build out once again. That wouldn't feel so good. So if this takes a little bit of time to play out, yeah, I don't know. I might pass on this and kind of let earnings play out first. I would rather not lose money, if I'm being honest, especially if it's not like my favorite chart. So just something to keep on watch. And then last but not least, let's talk about FSLR. The chart looks fucking crazy good, man. Solar just looks good. FSLR has always been a leader in solar. But yeah, this chart, beautiful from the last swing low to high. This was a pullback into the 618 right around 197.67, and it looks good for a continuation. Obviously, we're moving up on lower volume, but I want to see if it can really just break this resistance here. You got to think this was the previous higher high and just a big focal point on the chart. Each weekly close so far has failed to get above it, and it has an opportunity to get above it now, right? 232.14. And I think if you can clear through that, I think there's an opportunity for this to trade just, very quickly to 253.57. This is your weekly fair value gap as well. Obviously, this was the last support before it made a new low and kind of traded down. We had a bear flag, gap down, pushed up, another flag, kind of pulled back, made a new low. And now, right, you guys can see this daily is beautiful. This is gorgeous, where we had this break up to that resistance. We hit that resistance, had very little sell volume kind of at this zone, right? You guys can see how low that sell volume was. We traded down on diverging volume as well, right? This was diverging volume, and you guys can see it here. I don't think I need to draw all of it, but what did it do? Pulled back down into the gap, held the gap, big move off, right? This is always important, and it's not the biggest volume, if you guys can take a look, right? It's not the biggest volume, but it's more volume than any of the other sell days, which could snowball effect and really give us what we need to break above 232.14. Also got to think that each time we tap this, right, yes, buyers can't get through, but sellers are being absorbed. So if we see a big breakout or a gap up above 232, or a break and a base and it consolidates or flags on the 15, the hourly, or just something, right, just something where we don't break underneath this, right, we kind of hold it, I think that's the pathway, right, to 253. We'll have to see how these are priced. I imagine it's not, I don't know if it's expensive. It's gonna probably be like in the mid, right? So like $300 to $400 is my guess on 2-week out contracts. But yeah, I can't ignore this chart. FSLR looks so good, guys. Looks so good. Tan, right? I mean, tan as in general looks fantastic. This looks like it's an accumulation as well. I don't really ever draw patterns. I just kind of messing around with this. I'm embarrassed to even have that. But same thing, right? Same thing, right? You guys have the incremental lows being made where each new low is being really bought up on high volume, and we're starting to get this kind of structure build out where we're looking for a change of character. We're starting to see the good volume for a break, right? So now we just really need to clear some of these resistances and really base previous levels, and I think we have a clean pathway. Tan I think has the potential to move up to 51.73 and then 50.92. But really we need, kind of like this break here, right? Break, some kind of pullback, and then I think we can start going. I haven't really looked at EMAs this entire scan, so let's check them out. I mean, they're just now curling. So we probably have a couple days where we have like big pushes, and then we need to pull back and reset, let the EMAs kind of catch up, and I imagine that's going to be somewhere in this general range. But I am going to be using tan just to let you guys know, and kind of watching tan to make sure things look good, things look productive. But of course, FSLR will kind of lead the way here, so eyes on FSLR versus tan. All right, and that is all, guys. I really appreciate it. Once again, thank you guys so much for all the kind words. Thank you for everything. I feel much better from a mental standpoint. And thanks for being patient, right? I've kind of just been waiting on QQQ and semis, and you've kind of been getting mixed signals. There's been a lot of data that's been coming out that's made it really hard to trade around and really put in massive, massive size. But a lot of things are starting to look and give me that, that comfort that I'm right, right? That I believe that we're going to have this big rally kind of going into the end of the year. It really kind of comes down to Wednesday with NVIDIA reporting, and then obviously we'll be able to kind of ride out some of these semi names, as you guys can see, and try to trade those to target. But then also taking secondary positions, right? FSLR, Unity, Roku, Shop, SoFi, just so many different names that have potential as well, that can be supplementary to these other guys here. And obviously, if they look better than the semis or QQQ, right? You can always take more size on these on pullbacks and being able to roll. But I just wanted to get out a really in-depth scan. A lot of these names we've been talking about for a while, and they're setting up finally. So I think there's an opportunity to go really aggressive with a lot of these names, if I'm being honest. So yeah, just wanted to jump on here, kind of go over these, give you guys a more in-depth scan, add some names to the kind of the bucket that we can kind of pull from when we need to. As always, right, the short kind of remains Apple, if I'm being honest. I just don't really know what to do with this one just yet. But yeah, that's going to be it, guys. Thank you guys, as always, for watching. And yeah, I'm going to be in the chat a lot more. Feel very good mentally. And yeah, everything that kind of happened. Thank you guys once again for all the well wishes and kind of checking on me. It was an overwhelming amount of support. So I, from the bottom of my heart, truly, really appreciate it. So, yeah, I just want you guys to, take your time with this still. Don't do anything crazy. There's a lot of names on here. I'm a guy that would rather put all my eggs in like one or two baskets versus, grabbing 10 different names and then 5 of them work, 5 of them lose, right? You're not going to make a lot of money that way. So take it slow, really let these names kind of build out. Wait for those breaks, wait for the bases. It's okay if you even need to wait for like a daily candle close. I can't emphasize enough just being patient, because a lot of these names have really, really tremendous upside targets, like Roku, Shop, SoFi has a great opportunity, Path, right? A lot of these names have big, big targets, so you can be a little bit patient, and it's okay to be a little bit late. You don't have to be perfect with your timing or your entries. But yeah, I think the moment's here. So I will leave you guys with that. I'll see you guys on Monday, bright and early. And yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.